In our interconnected world, the dream of travel is more than just a luxury. It's a symbol of freedom, curiosity, and the endless possibilities that lie beyond the horizon. For many, the open road represents hope, adventure, and the chance to connect with people and cultures far from home. It's a reminder that the world, in all its diversity, is within reach. But for millions of people, this dream is shattered by the harsh realities of conflict and war. The simple act of moving from one place to another becomes fraught with danger, uncertainty, and heartbreak. When war erupts, the first thing lost is the ability to move freely. Checkpoints spring up overnight, roads that once bustled with life fall silent, and entire communities find themselves cut off from the world. Borders close, roads are blocked, and the world becomes smaller, more divided. The sense of possibility that travel brings is replaced by fear and isolation. The crisis in Gaza is a stark reminder. For many, the only journey left is one of survival. Families are forced to flee their homes, carrying only what they can, searching for safety in a landscape marked by destruction. The recent UN Security Council decision on Gaza is more than politics. It's about real people whose lives are upended by choices made far away. Every debate, every vote has consequences that ripple through the lives of those on the ground. Aid workers, journalists, and families are all affected by these decisions. Humanitarian convoys are delayed, stories go untold, and families are left waiting, hoping for a chance to reunite or simply to cross a border to safety. Every closed border and canceled flight is a story of connection denied. It's a missed reunion, a lost opportunity, a dream put on hold. The world feels smaller, and the distance between people grows. Today, as we look at the world map, we must see more than destinations. We must see the people living through these crises. Behind every border, every checkpoint, are lives interrupted and futures uncertain. Political choices have direct, often tragic impacts on ordinary lives. Children lose their schools, families lose their homes, and entire communities are left to pick up the pieces. The blocked ceasefire isn't just a diplomatic failure, it's a human tragedy unfolding in real time. Hospitals are overwhelmed, classrooms stand empty, and hope is in short supply. It's about journeys denied and hopes deferred. Children dream of playing in open fields, families long for the day they can return home, and refugees wait for a future that feels just out of reach. The world's longing for open roads is, at its core, a longing for peace, for the freedom to move, to explore, and to connect. It's a universal desire that transcends borders and politics. Only when peace returns can the roads to Gaza and beyond open again, not just for aid but for the simple act of human connection. The reopening of a border, the embrace of loved ones, the laughter of children running free, these are the moments that remind us of what's possible. The need for a path to peace has never been more urgent. In a world yearning for open roads, it is peace that paves the way for hope, healing, and a future where every journey is possible once again. In the United Nations Security Council, every decision carries immense weight, and the world watches closely as history unfolds within these walls. Here, a single vote can change the fate of millions, shaping the course of conflicts and the lives of ordinary people far beyond the chamber. In a recent session, 14 out of 15 members called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, reflecting a rare and powerful global consensus for urgent action. But with a single raised hand, the United States exercised its veto power, blocking the resolution and halting the momentum for peace. This marked the sixth time the U.S. has used its veto in matters related to this conflict, a pattern that has shaped the Council's response for decades. The veto overruled the overwhelming global consensus, leaving diplomacy at a standstill. As the world hoped for a breakthrough, violence and suffering continued on the ground. The vote, held during the Council's historic 10,000th meeting, became a stark symbol of paralysis, not progress, a moment when the world's highest forum for peace seemed powerless. For the people of Gaza, it was a devastating blow, dashing hopes for relief. For the international community, it served as a painful lesson in the limits of collective action, even in the face of urgent humanitarian need. The American veto wasn't just a procedural move, it sent a message that echoed far beyond the chamber, with real and immediate consequences for those caught in the conflict. It exposed a deep and growing rift in how powerful nations approach the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, highlighting divisions that have long complicated efforts for peace. While most of the world sees a humanitarian crisis demanding urgent and decisive action, the U.S. continues to prioritize its strategic alliance with Israel, even as the cost in human lives mounts. This unwavering support has become a defining feature of American foreign policy, shaping the dynamics of the Security Council and the broader international response. As the U.S. repeatedly blocks calls for a ceasefire, frustration grows worldwide. Many now openly question whether the Security Council can fulfill its mandate to maintain peace and security. If the Council cannot act decisively in a crisis of this magnitude, where can the world turn for leadership and hope? The answer remains uncertain, as the need for effective global action has never been more urgent. The vetoed resolution was a balanced, urgent plea for peace. It demanded an immediate, unconditional ceasefire to save civilian lives. It called for the release of all hostages held by Hamas, recognizing the pain of their families. The resolution also insisted on unhindered humanitarian aid for Gaza's suffering population. It was a blueprint for de-escalation: stop the bombs, free the captives, feed the hungry. 14 nations supported this vision. Its failure was not about the content, but about the political will to act. The United States offered a detailed explanation for its decision to veto the resolution, laying out several key objections that shaped its stance on the international stage. American officials argued that the resolution failed to explicitly condemn Hamas for the October 7th attacks, which they viewed as a critical omission. In their view, any meaningful response to the conflict must begin by acknowledging and addressing the actions that triggered the violence. From the American perspective, a ceasefire that does not hold the aggressor accountable risks setting a dangerous precedent. They believe that lasting peace can only be achieved if those responsible for initiating hostilities are recognized and addressed. The U.S. also emphasized Israel's right to self-defense, expressing concerns that an immediate ceasefire could leave Israel exposed to further attacks. American leaders worry that halting military operations without security guarantees could embolden hostile groups. They further claim the resolution was one-sided, arguing it did not reflect the full complexity of the conflict or the security concerns faced by Israel and its neighbors. Instead of supporting the resolution, the U.S. is pursuing a separate diplomatic track. American diplomats are working closely with regional partners to negotiate a temporary pause in fighting, aiming to secure the release of hostages and allow humanitarian aid to reach civilians in need. However, this approach has left America increasingly isolated on the world stage. Even some of its closest allies have broken ranks, supporting the call for an immediate ceasefire and highlighting a growing divide in international opinion. While the U.S. insists it is working tirelessly for peace, many around the world see a contradiction between its stated intentions and its actions. Critics argue that American policy appears more focused on protecting strategic interests than on ending the suffering. By vetoing a broad call for peace, the U.S. has sent a clear signal that its priorities remain closely tied to its alliances, particularly with Israel, even as the humanitarian situation worsens. As the humanitarian crisis in Gaza deepens, with thousands in urgent need of food, water, and medical care, the American position becomes increasingly difficult to justify on moral grounds. Around the globe, people are left questioning whether political calculations and alliances will always outweigh the urgent human need for peace and relief in times of crisis. In the end, the cost of inaction is measured not just in diplomatic fallout, but in innocent lives lost and communities shattered by ongoing violence. The U.S. veto triggered a wave of frustration in the Security Council. Near-unanimous support for the resolution made the lone dissent even more striking. The Palestinian ambassador called it a painful moment of abandonment. Algeria, which championed the resolution, apologized to the Palestinian people and vowed to keep fighting for peace. Even America's closest allies, like the UK and France, voted for the ceasefire, highlighting U.S. isolation. Many nations see the repeated veto as dangerous paralysis for the world's peacekeeping body. The Council's credibility is at stake. Attention now shifts to the UN General Assembly, where no country holds a veto. While its resolutions aren't binding, a strong vote there can send a powerful message. The world's demand for peace in Gaza is only growing louder. While diplomats debate, Gaza's crisis deepens. Over 65,000 have died, most of them civilians, many women and children. Homes, schools, and hospitals are destroyed. Daily life is in ruins. Food, water, medicine, and fuel are nearly gone. Famine is imminent. Hospitals operate without power or supplies, doctors forced to work in impossible conditions. More than 1 million people are displaced, seeking safety that doesn't exist. Even so-called safe zones are targeted, leaving civilians with nowhere to turn. The blocked ceasefire means aid remains a trickle in an ocean of need. Delivering help is dangerous, often deadly. The UN veto isn't just politics, it's a matter of life and death for Gaza's people. Gaza is now one of the world's most dangerous places, not just for residents but for those trying to help. Aid workers risk their lives daily, navigating rubble and bombardment to deliver food and medicine. Without a ceasefire, there are no safe corridors. Every mission is perilous. Convoys are blocked, attacked, or caught in crossfire. Relief organizations face destroyed infrastructure and a total breakdown of order. The psychological toll on aid workers is immense, many having lost their own families. The world's failure to secure a ceasefire leaves them feeling abandoned. Their courage stands in stark contrast to diplomatic inaction. The Gaza conflict has erased the possibility of normal travel. Borders are sealed, infrastructure destroyed, and the region is a war zone. Tourism, business, education, and family visits are all impossible. The impact ripples across the Middle East, hurting economies and isolating people. Airlines reroute flights, travelers cancel trips, and fear spreads. For the Palestinian diaspora, the inability to reach loved ones is agonizing. Journalists and monitors struggle to access the area, leaving the world in the dark. The blockade on movement is a blockade on empathy and understanding. Until peace returns, the dream of travel here remains out of reach. Decisions at the UN shape the world we all share. The crisis in Gaza is a test of our shared humanity. As global citizens, we must care about the suffering of civilians and demand peace. Empathy is the first step, seeing the human stories behind the headlines. Every closed border and canceled journey is a loss for us all. Advocating for peace in Gaza is about defending the principles of a connected world. Let this crisis inspire us to be more informed, engaged, and vocal. The path to peace begins with a collective will to walk it. Every life is precious. Dialogue must triumph over destruction. As travelers and global citizens, let's join the call for a ceasefire, for aid, and for a future where journeys are about hope, not survival.